woman who lost her coin. But the dominant theme in each one of them is the Lord's concern for those that are lost and his willingness to go to great efforts to do what he can to win them back again. And you know, after all, that's the whole theme of the Bible from cover to cover. It is what has won my heart to serve him, his mercy to my soul, of which I haven't been worthy, and his willingness to seek me and find me, give me a chance, start over again. And that's the story of the prodigal. It begins in the 15th chapter in the first verse of Luke. Scripture said, opening that part, then drew near to him all the publican and sinners for to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes murmured, saying, this man receiveth sinners. And I thought of this scripture this morning when Brother Tony was teaching us about the wisdom that is from above is first pure and then peaceable, and so forth. The Pharisees and the scribes murmured. So that doesn't sound to me like they came to him and said, Lord, we're a little concerned about this. It looks to us like that you're receiving people that we're not comfortable with. It sounds more like that they went around behind his back among themselves. Whether or not their point was valid, that's not a fair way to present it, is it? But they murmured, spoke behind his back, and the Lord was about as moved by that as he always is. He didn't let it deter him at all from what he was doing. And he had been doing that. Luke had told us just not long ago that he'd been going into the city streets and the byways and places like that, just meeting with anybody and everybody. And they said about Jesus Christ, the scribes and the Pharisees said about Jesus Christ, this man receiveth sinners. And that is about the highest praise they could have given him. This man receiveth sinners. And that is what has enabled him to be the Savior of the world. And that's what I depend my soul upon. This man receiveth sinners. It didn't matter whether they were scribes or Pharisees, whether they were women taken in adultery, whether they were a woman who had 5 husbands. It didn't matter whether they were tax gatherers or hiding up in the sycamore tree, or whether they were right from the Sanhedrin, whoever they were. He receiveth sinners. Anybody would come to him. And you think about that category, one time or another, that catches every one of us, doesn't it? So this man receiveth sinners. And in a sense, that's what the whole story of the prodigal son is about. Well, I want to read you a few verses of it and then skim through it, because I'm assuming that you've heard it before. And I don't want to be tedious with you. Beginning in the 11th verse, Luke said, and he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. Not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country. And there wasted his substance with riotous living, spent all, came a great famine in that land, began to be in want. You could almost write that story if you'd never read it before, couldn't you? That's what happens when people allow themselves to throw their lives away. There are a lot of ways to throw your life away. You can do it with drugs. You can do it with getting involved in too many inappropriate relationships. There are a lot of ways to throw your life away. And they all wind up in about the same place. When he got done, couldn't find anything to eat, went and joined himself to a citizen of that country and sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. And he would have filled his belly with the husks that they had. After a while, he said, I could do better than this. How many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and now I'm sitting here in the mud being hungry, pig sticking his nose up under my arm. I'll arise and go to my father. Tell him, Dad, I'm sorry. This sure looks different to me now than it did when I walked away from you. No more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. So he did. Came to his father. When he was a great way off, father saw him. He's a man who had received sinners. Had compassion and ran, fell on his neck and kissed him. You think he got all the mud off of him before he got there? You think the father even cared? came to his father, but when he met him, ran and fell on him and kissed him. The son said, Father, I've sinned. No more worthy to be called thy son. He said, I don't want to talk about that. If you're back again, whatever was back there in your dark past, I know you had experiences where you were that are dark and shameful, and I don't want you to dwell on the details of them, and I don't want to dwell on the details of them. Let's draw a veil of forgiveness over them and put them in the past, and let's get you home again and start on with a new life. You're better off not even remembering any of those things if you can. So he said, bring forth the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring hither the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat, drink, and be merry, so forth. So that's the story. But I don't intend to dwell on all of it, just a part of it. I want you to notice how this started out. A certain man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, well, there's a lot of theology in this. It no doubt was originally given, the Lord gave it, speaking of the Jews and the Gentiles. And he put the Gentiles in the category of the younger son. And he was trying to tell them, there's a whole world full of people out there. They don't have the background that you do, but I've come to save them too. No doubt that's part of it. And there's some other things in it. The second son is in his way just as much trouble as the younger son is, because he's got some serious things in his heart that he needs to deal with. I know each of those have their place. I want to testify about it, that that's not what the Lord put on my heart this morning, so I'm not going to work with any of those things. I want to talk about this. Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. Portion of goods that falleth to me. Came and talked to him. Dad, give me the portion. He could have used some other words besides that. He knew he was a son. He knew the Hebrew law required that there would be an inheritance and that he'd get his share of it. He could have said, Dad, you know, I'm ready to try something else. I'm not sure I like being a farmer. I'm considering that these people were farmers because the younger son was out in the field when he got back. And when he wanted to, it was easy to go out and get a calf to bring it in. So let's say that they were farmers. Maybe he's saying, Dad, you know, we all have different things we like in life. I'm not sure I want to be a farmer. Well, let's talk about that, because there's going to be some portion of goods that falls to me. And after all, you're the one that made most of the money that's going to come into my hands. So help me see let's plan this together. He could have done that. The word give me in the Greek, it's in what's called the aorist tense. And that means it's a demand. He didn't just go and ask, say, Dad, let's talk about this. It'd be nice. He went and demanded. I'm of age. I want what's going to be mine. You give it to me. It's insulting what this boy did. I'm going to ask you to think about it a little bit. What is it actually that he had? I mean, I say he's on the farm, but let's say for any of us, what it is that we have. Well, you got a mind, and you got a will, capability to think about things for yourself and make your own decisions. When you get to be grown, you can use your will however you want to. Oh, it's been tried many times to beat somebody into giving up their will, but they never will. You know, there's an old chimney corner of scripture that says a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. There's a fellow named William Henley who wrote a poem about it. And out of what he said, and he was speaking from a place of being determined to exercise his will in spite of whatever else went on with him. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods there be for my unconquerable soul. And he's saying, that's mine. You cannot force me to be a farmer. You cannot force me into the mold. Well, there's some other things that were in his inheritance besides just some land. He was a Jew. So he'd been taught the law all of his life. From the time he was a little boy, he started to marry Moses and heard the story of journey through the Red Sea and about Joseph and about all the famine that came in Egypt. I don't know all of his life. And now he's saying in so many words, I want to make my own decisions about that. You Jews have your own ways of doing things. Well, some of them seem a little bit strange. If one of those practicing Hasidic Jews would come into our service today, he wouldn't look like we do. You remember the Bible talks about those little amulets that you wear that got the letters of the law in them. They really wear those, and they wear them on the skirts of their garments. And a practicing Jew would have a 6-inch broad blue strip around the hem of his garment. And he's advertising by that what he is what Jesus had when that woman came up and touched him from behind. And when she touched him, having her disease, it made him unclean. He wasn't supposed to touch anybody else from that time on for that day under the Jewish law. And this boy is saying in so many words, that's my heritage. That's my heritage. Give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. You're not going to be able to force me into this mold. Out of the night that covers me, I thank whatever gods there be, whether yours or mine or any others, I thank them for my unconquerable soul. I'm going to make my own decisions with a portion of goods that falleth to me. How to get those goods? Well, I know how I got the goods that came in my family. I'd been a grown man a long time when my dad died. So there's a difference between that and this boy. But even so, I stayed at home. I lived at home until I was about 16 years old and never really did after that very much. So 14 years old, you're getting so you can be kind of productive. And what was that Dad used to say? 1 boy is a pretty good boy, and 2 boys is half a boy, and 3 boys is nothing at all. And that's a little bit the way it was, and I was one of those. And so I wasn't really a man's rate, but we had a house, we had a car, we had a farm that we lived in. Where'd that come from? He didn't say, give me the portion of goods that I have earned. He said, give me the portion that falleth to me, falls on me. There are some things that fall to you by virtue of being a human being. You didn't earn them. It isn't that you, if you take the course of anyone who would do so foolishly, to take the course the prodigal did to say, well, I've learned so much about life that I am equipped now. I don't need the 10 Commandments anymore. I can invent my own way. And so you turn me loose. I've got this figured out. Nobody at the place where this boy is like that. Oh, folks, you can be a prodigal when you're 60 years old. No matter where you are in life, you don't ever get so experienced with it that you can afford to use your own skill or your own understanding or decide which way you're going to take in your own capability. But this boy tried it. Give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And so he made his demand. Then why did he do it? Why did he decide he needed to go away? What makes people discontented? Well, from the Lord. And from wanting to live in the dark places. What makes them want to do that? Well, most usually it's because of the government that's in their family. I'm tired of it. You want to try something different. I grew up on a farm. There are things that happened on the farm that I didn't enjoy. And maybe you do some more than I did. I worked for my uncle in California, and he had cotton fields. It was hot, and the sun was shining, and he hired me to hoe cotton. My job was some big field, go up and down those rows early in the morning and all day long, and chop cotton. They plant it too thick, and you're supposed to cut some out. And I'd be out there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, had enough water to drink, and the sun on the back of my neck. You ever had the gnats buzzing around your head all day long, little bitty rascals, and you can't get them all, and they spray that repellent on them, and just like I hadn't done it, like they liked it better than I do, nothing to do but just put up with it. It's easy to think, there's got to be a better way to make a living than this, out here hoeing cotton. And I did some of it. People feel that way, don't they? Not just about that. Girls have some of these things too. Girls can get tired of washing dishes. You think I'm growing up. There ought to be something better for me than this by now. My friends are not doing this. My friends are doing things that are exciting and interesting. There's things on the farm that are unpleasant and difficult. We used to milk cows by hand. We never did have a milking machine. We had about 12 or 15 cows and milk them morning and evening. And you know, cows never wash their tails. But they would hit us with them when we'd get down there to wash to milk them. And I had one old cow in particular. It's been long ago, and I still remember. I don't know how in the world a cow knows when the time comes, but she could get her foot in my bucket when it was just about full of milk more times. And she knew how to do it. And it'd be easy to sit there and think, you know, I got some friends, and they're in town, and they're drinking Pepsis. That's what we used to drink at that time. There is no cow hitting him in the face with this old nasty tail like this is with me. And I got to do this because my dad bought these cows. And as long as I live in this house, I got to help milk them and take care of them. There got to be something better for life than this. That's kind of reasons why people make the decisions that they do. I haven't learned yet that any way you go in life, you're going to have some hard things to deal with. It's just the way life is. There's going to be something that hits you in the face. So you don't want to do that. And it's easy to get some attitudes in front of you. My dad's holding me down. My mother has got me in a corner. I don't get to do what the other young people do because my parents are so hard on me. It's so easy to build that kind of resentment. And when people get that resentment, that's when they're ready to come and say, give it to me. Don't come and say, Dad, I'm decided maybe I'd rather be a machinist. Let's work this out. I didn't do that either. If I'd have gone to my dad and said, you know, I think I'd like to be a machinist, he could have helped me because he was a machinist and he knew some machinists and he bought some machine equipment and he could have taught me how to use it. But he didn't. He didn't. He bought a metal turning lathe, and I couldn't do any more than turn the switch on with it today because I never let him teach me. I was too busy worrying about the cow hitting me in the face with her tail. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? And to build a resentment against him. And it's that resentment against government at home that makes people do what this boy did. Go give me what's mine. It's not a request. It's a demand. It isn't really his because he earned it. It's his because he was born in that family. The talents that you and I have, intelligence, capability, health, ability to understand better things to do, they're a gift. We didn't develop that by our own human capability or understanding. And when we demand the right to use them according to the way we want to, we kind of be careful about that. What was he expecting to get out of leaving? It didn't sound to me like from the rest of the story about this that he wanted to go out and get a job as a machinist somewhere. Isn't it amazing? Somebody can take their journey into a far country and still be sitting across from the table from you every day. And their heart be so very far away from where you really are together. Their interests, the distance. And so you can be busy wasting the substance of your life, throwing it away. Dad didn't try to stop him. I wonder what Dad thought. There have been 3 of us here working this farm. And there's plenty of work for all 3. He's going to take away a significant chunk of the money that we've had to use. We buy seed with that money. We buy fertilizer. We buy animals to make more animals. He's going to take a bunch of that away. We worked hard to get that. And he's going to go do just whatever he wants to do with it. It's going to wind up in a gambler's pocket somewhere. It's going to wind up in a casino somewhere. In the games, in the thrills, in the play pretties. That's where it's going. We worked hard for that. We sweat for that. He did some. He didn't do what we've done. And now it's going out the door with him. Dad stood there and watched him go. So what did he go to get? Music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter and flashing lights. And he went to get music and laughter That's not my world. But I looked at it a little bit last night. Nightclubs in Oklahoma City. Strobe lights and flashing lights. They flash on. And the music, we sing. We try to sing here. We don't have any musical instruments, and we don't have any microphones hanging down in the middle, so we mostly get brave Sister Kendra that we can hear over our speakers, and the rest of us kind of chime in with her. You can find places in Oklahoma City where the music gets turned up, you nearly feel like the walls are vibrating. And people love it. They go there for it. The bands go to play in those kind of places to make it as loud as they can, to attract people, because people like that, because that's where the excitement is. Because that's where the excitement is. The devil likes to tell the girls, if you dress like these people do, guys are going to notice you. It's exciting. You're going to be interested. It'll put a sparkle in your eyes. Well, you'll be competing with all the other girls that are doing that too, but he doesn't show you all of that. That's what they go for. The thrill, the excitement, the interest of it. And the guys, we can think of a bunch of things like that. The roar of the engines out at the racetracks. And I had a brother in our congregation one time. His son kept begging him to go to one of those races, and they got turbos there. They got nitros. They shoot those flames out the back of those engines for such a long ways. Now, that won't help you when you're driving from here to Nashville on the interstate. It doesn't matter how big a nitro engine you got. The speed limit is 70 miles an hour or 75, and you get over that, there's going to be a highway patrolman around there. That's all for show and play, and spend a lot of money to do that, and guys have a lot of fun doing that. And that's not all they do with that. That's where the drugs are. And that's where the gambling are. My friend said he went there with his son, and he said, we listened to the roar of the engines, and he said, I like fast cars too. And I like the excitement of the things they were doing, the loudspeaker calling out who's winning the races and things of that sort. But I noticed some guys over there, and I nudged my son, what are they doing? What are those guys doing? And he dropped his head. He'd been there long enough to know. Now they got a bet on it, Dad. Somebody's house is involved, maybe some money that ought to be going to feed their family. They're betting it against one of these winners. Oh, yeah, well, that's what they do out here, isn't it? What about those boys over there? They do little things to add to the excitement of what are they doing? Well, they're selling drugs. They're not doing that to make you rich. They're not doing that to make you happy. But that's why they go. The old devil likes to hold that out there in front of you. It's all around us in the world today. Tobacco, just a simple thing. Mother and dad, the church, spirituality. Teach you all these years to be careful of your language. Say, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me, and you can start using any kind of language you want to. You can curse and swear. You can spice up your language with the filthiest words that there are, and the world is doing it. And the more they use it, the less really it does what they're trying to do. They do it for emphasis. They do it to try to make themselves feel a little bit more important. It does just the opposite, the more of it that they do. But it feels liberating. It feels like I finally stepped into my own place. I can say anything I want to. I'm not following that old religion anymore, Mom and Dad of God. The Lord's listening, but let him go. Let him go. Did you know that the state of Oklahoma still today is considered the rooster fighting capital of the world? That you can go places in Oklahoma. It's illegal. It's been illegal for 20 years. But you can still go places today and find a group of people who get together on Saturday afternoon, been hiding these roosters out in the woods somewhere, training them or whatever they do to make a rooster want to fight, and they'll get together. And it's all this same thing, excitement and fun. And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. We're not talking about how that old cow hit me in the face with her tail again. We're talking about how my rooster beat their rooster and how my rooster jumped. And you should have seen him jump right on his back and just started whacking him with those big old spears. spurs that they got strapped on their legs. There they went at it. It was something. You should have seen it. You should have seen it. That's what they do. That's what this prodigal boy was going out to get. It didn't turn out like he thought it would. One of the reasons he went was to get out from under Dad's eye. Well, in a way you can. I want to talk to you some of where that leads, folks. I got my heart in this today. It's hard, and I need your prayers. I knew a man. I knew his son well. He had a large family, and he had a boy who grew up, and he took the way of a prodigal. And he left home, and his dad had no idea where he was for maybe 40 years. And he finally got word one day back, this is where your boy is, and he's dying. And before Dad could get there to see him one more time, he was gone. That's real. That's life. I preach these things because I have loved them, lived them, and it's painful. And I want to do everything I can for my own family, for my own soul's sake, to help everybody I can not get caught into that kind of place. The prodigals don't all come back. Jesus' message is optimistic. It's a message that there is a way back, but they don't all come back. We had a neighbor where I grew up in Iowa. He sent me up in his attic one day for something, and when I was up there, I noticed a box that he had. It was a triangular-shaped box. It had a glass front on it. It had an American flag in it. And it had the name Gerald Talmadge on the front of it, as I recall. And it shocked me. They came down and said, Mr. Talmadge, tell me the story of that. He said, my boy, we got a war with a country, and my boy went off in the military and said, I never saw him again. He gave his life over in Germany. That's life. There's nowhere to spend. What are you going to do with that plaque? Nobody wants it but him, but he couldn't give it away. It hurt too much. It's too close to him. You know what this came down to Mom and Dad? There's a time when they go back in the house. The boys walked away. We've had our confrontation, made it as easy as I can because I see he's going to do it. There's no point in making the barrier higher if he ever wants to come back again by trying to twist him about it. So this is what you want to do. I'm going to let you do it. This is where we live. And then supper time comes. Then there's an empty plate. Our family's always made Thanksgiving a special family day. Pardon me. My brother missed it one year. I'd missed it before. My brother missed it one year. We got around the table. All the rest of the family there. Came time to offer grace. My dad prayed for his family. Gathered there with him. And he got halfway through the prayer. And his voice broke. I'm praying for the one that's not here. And when he got through, my sisters turned to me and said, you see what it's like when you're not here? How many times do you eat together? Every day. Every day. And every day there's a place at the table that used to be somebody in, and they're not there. And you wonder about them. My dad used to sing those old songs. And I remember one that he sang to me. He said, I see two heads so snowy white. I see that home so far away. And it seems I can hear him say, where is my wandering boy tonight? And that's a hard thing, folks. When folks have said, I'm going to take my substance and go my way. And there comes a time when Mom and Dad have got to say, I know he's out there somewhere. I pray God that I won't get that message like that old brother did, that I haven't seen him in all these years and now he's dying And it happens before I can get there. I hope that doesn't happen, but you can't keep it from happening. The prodigals don't all come back. Sometimes the empty plate stays at the table, the empty chair, the pictures. Mom and Dad have pictures on their wall, and they got the whole family in them. And why do they have them all? Because they love them all. And you look at it and say, well, where's that one? I never see him. And you know, these things are so personal and so painful. Usually people don't even like to talk about it very much because it hurts so badly. But then sometimes they'll tell you, yeah, he's gone. We lost him. We had a family reunion after my sister died. And we said, let's have a missing man formation. The four of us lined up to have a picture taken, so let's leave a space there where Pat was. And when we got through, we all looked at each other and said, we're never going to do that again. That hurts too bad. That is the very center of the story of the prodigal. That's what the whole focus of it is about. It's got deep theology in it, but the real essence of what the Lord wanted to get across here is how much he loves us and how bad it hurts. When somebody lets the strobe lights and the makeup, and somebody lets everybody else is smoking and I can smoke, or chewing tobacco, or using bad language, and I can do it too, and I'm going to take my own, and they take it, and they go that way, and they know better than to do it, and then somehow, somewhere, the Lord draws a line on them. It's too late, and it's never going to be right again. I am so tired of looking down at them in the box and thinking we prayed for you, and we've loved you, and we've had our tears on your face more than once, but now we're doing it for the last time because you made one mistake too many. The prodigal, they don't all come back. The glad message of the scripture is that Jesus receives sinners. He receives sinners. It doesn't have to be that way. He didn't intend it to be that way. But if you allow the pleasures and excitement of carnal things to matter more than spiritual things, it always winds up in the same place. There came a famine in that land. There's always a famine in that land. Oh, Lord, help us. Tough places people get in. I had a member in our My father had occasion to counsel with a brother one time about how to handle one of his children. They weren't obeying the rules of the home very well. Dad said, I don't know. We want to keep our home. We want to spare the others. I sure hate to send him out. He's too young. The old brother said, I know. I was there. He said, I had a daughter. She would not obey. She would slip out at night. She would run around the streets. Girl, 16, 17 years old, out on the streets at night. You just pray. You're just so vulnerable, so unprepared to protect yourself from the terrible, degrading things that are there. But she was going to try it. She just wanted to try her wings, and she'd slip out. Said, Clifford, I made her leave. I was afraid of what she was going to do to the rest of our family. He said, I've regretted it every day since. She went far away. She never wants to come home or be around us anymore. I don't know what I should have done because she was determined to take the portion of goods that falleth to her. But there's always that empty plate. There's always that longing. Where is my child tonight? What is the devil doing with him? When is the phone going to ring? It'll be the one song, that message that I don't ever want to have to hear again. That's what he's talking about. It is this closeness in families that puts the real weight on the story of the prodigal son. And it can be as a son to a father. It can be a husband to a wife. It can be a brother to a brother. Whenever you move away from your family, you leave an empty plate somewhere. Well, like I said, my dad taught me some of those old songs. And I think about them sometimes. We had one of our last times before he left us, we had all the family together and got the guitar out and said, Dad, sing those to us for a while. So he did, as long as he could stand it. And then he started thinking about his home, the way things had been for him. And after a while, he broke up and started crying. This one was written in the 1800s. Standing by my window yesterday morning without a thought of worry or regret, and I saw the postman coming down the pathway, bringing me a letter edged in black. That's how people used to get the news. Trembling hand, I took the letter from him, I broke the seal, and this is what it said. Come home, my boy, your dear old father wants you. Come home, my boy, your dear old mother's dead. The last words your mother ever offered were, tell my boy I want him to come home. My eyes are dim, my poor old heart is breaking, and I'm waiting as I'm writing you this letter edged in black. He's rounded up. This is the father still speaking to the son. Those angry words I wish I'd never spoken. You know I didn't mean them, don't you, Jack? May the angels bear the witness. I'm asking your forgiveness in this letter edged in black. Well, I'm tugging on your heartstrings, I know, and sometimes we teach doctrine. My testimony is this is what the Lord gave me, and something that's close and painful, but it is life. It is life. This is the way life is, and one way or another, we're all going to face it before we leave this world. And I tell you frankly, these are some of the most painful and difficult things that there are in the world that you ever have to deal with. And I'm saying that, as you know, in the hope of God and the fear of God, that the Lord help us not to allow these things to happen to us, that we do whatever we need to do to not take the choice that this young man took. There is a better way. You can take your life to the Lord and say, I'd like to make some changes. Will you help me to do it? He's loving, he's willing to work with. I have this testimony. I worked for the Daily Oklahoman in Oklahoma City for 7 years, and I got to be a supervisor in the composing room. And after I got to be a supervisor, several guys working for me, every day I got balled out. And every day I was supposed to go ball 2 or 3 other people out. Anybody working for me did something wrong and come and chew me out, and then I was supposed to go chew them out. And I go home every night with a tension headache. I didn't like it. The Lord sent us out to another place, and the Lord told me, I gave you that job and you didn't like it. What do you want to do? And I told the Lord I'd like to work on houses. And my testimony today is that the Lord made it possible. I went to work in Danville, Kentucky for a man that had 25 rent houses. And he said, you don't have to do very much, just paint where I tell you to. And when I want you to put on a roof, you can read on the label and shingles how to put them on. And the Lord's put opportunities in front of me. And I haven't ever worked on a newspaper a day since. He'll work with you. If you go to him and say, in the imperative, in the aorist tense, give it to me. I want it. I'm going to go see how much fun I can have. It won't work. You can do that. This man did that. But it always winds up in the same place. So I want to entreat you this morning, by the Lord's help, be willing to be patient. There's some excitement in the Lord's work too. There'll come a time when the whole palace hall has got light in it. Beautiful and a place to be. There'll be a time. You'll be glad if you're steady. Be faithful. Be willing to put the Lord's way first. And you see how this is? It's not by commandment. We have no right to demand it of you. It's a choice. You can do what you want to do, but we do have the right to hold before you how bad it hurts. It hurts us, it hurts you if you go the other way. The Lord wants us to be able to sing that the circle will be unbroken when we get over there. My mother used to tell us, and I know this is not the way it is, and she did too, but it haunted her mind. She said, if you die and are lost, don't you call my name when I get in hell, when you get in hell. And I know it's not like that. I know it's not like that. But I know also that those of us who are still alive, we're watching each other in the hope that we'll do what's necessary to be able to meet him in peace. I'm through. I appreciate your attention this morning and your prayers. Now think of a song we have, our hymnal, or maybe it's in the blue book. Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling. My whole message to you this morning, Lord, have mercy on my soul. I so fear these things. My whole message is, this man receiveth sinners. And because that's true, we don't have to finish that way. Could we stand and sing? Is it in our blue book, softly? And you have it? Do we know it well enough to sing it? Let's stand and sing that, please. It's an old familiar hymn.
I sent it to the WhatsApp group if anyone wants to look at it there. Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. Patiently, Jesus is waiting and watching, watching for you and for me. Come home, come home. Ye who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home. Why should we tarry when Jesus is pleading, pleading for you and for me? Why should we linger and heed not his mercies, mercies for you and for me? Come home, come home. Ye who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home. Time is now fleeting, the moments are passing, passing from you and from me. Shadows are gathering, deathbeds are coming, coming for you and for me. Come home, come home. Ye who are weary, come home.
It's a comment?